Splatoon 3 has officially crossed the 1 year mark, and over that year, the game has slowly but surely become better and better, and has made strides in becoming the definitive experience for the series. That being said, no game is ever perfect, and there are still some glaring flaws with this game, whether minor or not, that do hold it back in my, and many others' opinion. This past season though, I think shocked everybody, as patterns that felt routine were broken with this update, as we ended up getting 2 new stages, as opposed to 1 new and 1 returning stage, along with the fact that those stages were actually vast improvements from the previous maps we've been getting, which is a massive sign of optimism for this game's future, especially with the upcoming rework for Mahi Mahi Resort at the time of writing this, which by the way is pretty good. Crab meta also seems to be pretty much dead, and has been usurped by the likes of Inkjet, Tacticore, and Trizuka, and there's a lot more variety in comps than the commonplace double splash, double machine comps that plagued the early days of competitive Splatoon 3. But as we roll into the month of November, we have to start getting ready for the next wave of new content to shake up the game. I've done this twice already, and I just wanted to thank you guys for the attention the last video got, and I'm trying to take into consideration some of the input that came from that video, and I legitimately want each of these season prediction hope videos to be an improvement on my last attempt, and I want them to try and at least stand out from the dozens of other videos. So with that being said, let's get into discussing the possibilities for new content we might receive in chill season. First off, unlike the previous videos, I'm not going to talk about where the new content will be disclosed via tweets or trailer, because I don't really think it's that important to discuss that. So we'll just talk about some smaller things that I think we could see in this potential chill season reveal. For one, I think that we could get possibly a small hint or teaser for side order in a trailer. Maybe something kind of like the initial reveal where at the end of the chill season trailer, we see a few images briefly flash onto the screen, giving more hints and questions to the fans as to what the story of this campaign could entail. I'm obviously hoping for as much information for me to freak out about as possible, but I'm just not expecting anything big from side order for this season really, and that's if we get anything at all. The big chunks of information will likely have to wait for Fresh Season 2024. I know this isn't really anything super small, but seeing as the last ones were added 3 seasons ago, I could see the possibility of a new special or 2 added into the game. If we were to redesign or revamp an existing special, much like Kraken Royale in that Fresh Season update, I feel like the most likely candidate would be Bubble Blower. I don't know how this special would necessarily be changed, if at all, but I thought it was something like you get 8 to 9 seconds to blow bubbles that will grow in size depending on how long you charge them, with bigger bubbles doing more damage and having a larger blast radius. But you can only charge a bubble for a maximum of 3 seconds before it's automatically released, so that you can't just unleash a massive bubble of death onto the enemy team. Smaller bubbles could be used to help teammates in fights by applying chip damage, while bigger bubbles could wall off certain areas. This design would hopefully give Bubble Blower multiple options to impact a match by giving it options to play either offensively or defensively, and also removing some of the jank it had in 2, such as insta-pop options with subs. Since the devs probably want a nice round number of specials, let's address the elephant in the room when it comes to specials next. SP Chimney. This is bringing up data mine spoilers, so be wary as I talk about this if you don't want any details spoiled. SP Chimney is said, based on speculation by data miners, to be a kind of smokescreen that spawns 3 walls lasting 6 seconds and moves roughly at the speed of a Quahog. Touching the wall will deal 30 damage and mark the player for 6 seconds, and is roughly 1.5 times the size of a point sensor. With that out of the way though, let's get into another topic that I haven't brought up before. Just gonna say it right now, this part of the video coming up is pure speculation and copium that is not as much based on Splatoon as it is with possible plans surrounding Nintendo in general right now. So what I'm about to suggest is a hard stretch that will most likely not come to fruition, but I'm gonna say it anyways. What if, at some point in this upcoming season, the developers decided to announce that they were extending the lifecycle of this game to get 3 years of content updates, rather than the previously promised 2 years? I know that development work on a game is very hard, even harder than I probably think it is, and so I definitely don't want to take it for granted and start overhyping and expecting a 3rd year of content. But with how the game launched sales-wise, breaking records in Japan for a couple of months, before Pokemon Scarlet and Violet immediately took that spot, even if those same numbers didn't really hold up that much afterward, there's reason to believe that possibly in that moment, Nintendo might have at least strongly recommended the developers to make plans for content beyond the initially planned schedule. It happened in the first 2 games as well, as the series has just had a history of outperforming everyone's wildest expectations, becoming a cultural phenomenon in Japan especially. Along with the fact that it seems like backwards compatibility will be a thing with the next Nintendo system, it seems like a golden opportunity to keep content going for this game onto the new system. Assuming it releases next holiday season like everyone's expecting at this point, rather than ending content updates right when the system launches, leaving people with a Splatoon game getting nothing but balance patches at launch for that system. And while balance patches can still excite the more dedicated fans, the number of more casual fans that will stick around will gradually dwindle. This could also be an explanation for how long side order has been taking, as if we go based off the current estimate release of spring 2024, there will only be a seasonal update left by the time side order is finished, and assuming that side order was the reason for the lack of weapon kits in previous updates, that potential third year could do wonders in rectifying the problem of weapons without second kits, and could help with giving a significant portion of the weapons, if not all of them, third kits as well. Now though, it's time to shift to the possibilities of events or content for Salmon Run in this upcoming season. Salmon Run has been winning recently with content updates. As we've gotten 2 big runs, we're going to be getting a second extra work in as many seasons in early November, so I think this season's the time where we'll be seeing a bit less for the mode, as I'm not expecting to get a map added for the 3rd season in a row, and I don't think we'll be getting an extra work in chill season. And to be honest, I'm not super big on extra work, so it wouldn't really upset me that much. Based on the possible timing for other events within this season, I expect us to get a big run in about the middle of January, right before a possible mid-season balance patch, probably from January 12th to the 14th. My hope for the big run map is a stage like Eeltail Alley or something, and if you're wondering why I didn't say Mincemeat this time, you'll find out later. I've always expected Museum to get a big run at one point though, as it just seems to fit Salmon Run very well. For hopes when it comes to a new Salmon Run stage, fine, I guess the incredibly overrated Ruins of Earthpolaris can come back so people on Twitter can shut up about it. Next up, I want to talk about Splatfest possibilities for this season. After a rough start when it comes to the frequency of Splatfest, we've been on a streak of 4 months in a row with one, which when we were previously used to these being every month, it's still pretty unacceptable that a streak like this has to be something we give the devs credit for, but hey, baby steps. Unfortunately, or fortunately if you hate Splatfest, I think that streak is going to end in November, as more effort will be put towards refining a possible Frosty Fest in December, with a potential Splatfest topic being something like a favorite winter activity, with options such as building a snowman, making snow angels, or partaking in a snowball fight. The Splatfest would be held the weekend before Christmas, taking place from December 22nd to the 24th, with the results being announced right before the kids have to go to bed for Santa, wink wink. Another possibility for a winter-themed Splatfest could be something like a good drink to warm you up, with some options being hot chocolate, tea, coffee, or whatever else the devs could come up with. In terms of any host for a Splatfest, I want to see at least one promotional Splatfest this season, and I think we could look at a highly requested one be revisited. Given that there's precedent for revisiting Splatfest role games with Money vs. Love vs. Fun a couple months back, and so what if for a future Splatfest, we had SpongeBob vs. Patrick vs. Squidward? SpongeBob is a worldwide phenomenon that will never die, and so I think this could be a very likely topic for a revisit. And Nickelodeon has done multiple promotional Splatfests, one for SpongeBob, and another in the form of the Rise of TMNT Tournament Splatfest in Splatoon 2. Another hope I have for the format of Splatfest is to maybe add ranked modes into the results, while removing popularity as a category, as it's just giving a team points for free, and more often than not, it's been shown to be the team Japan likes most. With Splatfest out of the way, let's get into the stages and weapons. So the stages last season threw me for a bit of a loop, as instead of the usual one returning stage combined with a new stage, we got 2 new stages, and they're both some of the best new maps in the game, which says a lot about how bad the previous maps were. But enough about that, because we have to talk about what maps we'll get this season. And unfortunately, but also kind of fortunately for me if you've seen my past 2 season prediction videos, I don't really have to talk about my hopes here, because I've seen data mines regarding future stages in chill season, and know that it's essentially a lock that we will at least at some point, though likely this upcoming season as of right now, correct me if I'm wrong though, that Bluefin Depot will be returning, which is the one of the 3 remaining Splatoon 1 stages trapped in that game that I wanted the most, so I'm happy about that. Oh yeah, and also as a side note, the reef was at one point discovered in the files, but has apparently been gone since 2.1.1, as far as I know. So there's a decent chance that could be coming too, but I'm not betting on it this season. As for a new stage, I thought about some of the settings of other stages in the past, such as a mall, skate park, theme park, and thought about some of the aspects of Splatoon as a series to come up with a concept of a setting for a stage that I'm surprised hasn't been done yet. Some aspects of Splatoon give it a more rebellious, non-conforming vibe that should be prevalent in the game in the series themed around chaos, and that aspect feels like it could resonate really well with the teenage to young adult demographic, which made me think of a map that takes place in a classroom, with school objects like pencils or markers serving as obstacles to navigate. But I'm not done with stages just yet, because as you may remember from a few minutes ago, I had stated there was a reason that unlike the past 2 times, I didn't bring up Mincemeat Metalworks as a candidate for a big run stage. And that was because of the fact that I think it's an even stronger candidate for a rework this coming season. Now of course, a lot of the stages in this game desperately need a rework, but I don't know if there's been one stage that has been requested to get a rework quite as much as Mincemeat. And since what I believe to be the only stage that compares to it in terms of hatred from the fanbase in Brinewater Springs was a post-launch map, I feel like they'd have made plans to rework Mincemeat before Brinewater, and I feel like we'll be seeing map reworks only once every season, even if that's sadly nowhere near enough to work on every bad map in this game. But for some basic ideas, I can think of just a few that will make the map a whole lot better right away. For one, move this grate near the spawn to the left and just make it a short walk to the lower area here. Another change that I think could help is putting another sponge right about here to give another option other than the improved grate to back out from that to further help with the spawn being more or less a one-range drop. The block and Quinblet should just also be added to the era modes as well to provide another option for approaching the enemy base other than the grate. Oh yeah, and lastly, make this wall linkable. You know the one. Next, it's time to talk about the potential for weapon kits. Because I know people will get on my case for some of these, I'm just gonna say it straight up. Some of these kits will suck in terms of weapon fit because the developers aren't gonna hit all the time. Also, since it's impossible to tell how the metal will develop, and I can't give everything a lethal bomb in something like Trizuka, for the rest of these season weapon kit predictions, I'm just gonna assume that for the sake of them, we live in a perfect world where everything's balanced. Now to talk about the possible weapon kits. In terms of a solid number, I'm expecting something at least greater than what we got in Drizzle season, but still not that much, and expecting about 10 to 12 new weapon kits. So I'm gonna go down the middle and present 11 possibilities. This will leave us, before any possible new main weapons getting added, with only 10 main weapons without a second kit, which means we should at the very least be on track for every weapon to get second kits before updates are said and done. And if it's in fact the case that we only get 2 years of updates, we may be seeing the last new main weapon soon, either in this season or the next. But with that out of the way, let's talk about the new kits. Starting with the 52 Gal Deco, since it does really seem to love giving the 52 Deco this sort of sub, it will retain its Curling Bomb, but in place of Stingray, it'll end up getting Booyah Bomb, as it helps a bit with aiding the special distribution amongst weapons, and it borrows the Booyah from the K52 Gal in Splatoon 2. For the Foil Squeezer, with a new special, you want to give it to a couple weapons, and since Foil Squeezer had Bubble Roar in Splatoon 2, let's have it retain its kit from that game of Splat Bomb Bubble Roar. Moving on to the Chargers, based on what I've seen from some fans, and since it feels like this is the charger that can make it work the best with its gimmick of charging at the same speed in midair, we're gonna give the new Squiffer Zipcaster Bird special, while giving it back its Auto Bomb from 2. For the Air Charger, I decided to bring back the Snipe Raider, but not with a different amount of shots this time, nor the poorly made Best Girl joke, but now in my latest creation, the Snipe Raider 5B, this time coming with a kit of Angle Shooter and Inkjet. With the Slosher, we're going to trot back out the custom Explosher kit I've suggested in the past, with a kit of Splash Wall and Crab Tank. With Crab meta pretty much dead, we don't really have to worry about a kit with Splash Wall and Crab being quite as bad for the meta as we did before, especially when it's put on a weapon as ink-hungry as the Explosher. Now for the Splatlings, we start with the custom Hydra, getting Ink Mine Bird sub. For the special, I wanted the 2 Bubble Blower weapons for this video to be 2 weapons that played different roles, and I felt the Hydra was the best example for a backline that's playstyle differs vastly from Squeezer. For the Air Splatling, we obviously have the Nautilus, which I decided to switch the kit to Suction Bomb / SP Chimney, instead of it getting an Ink Vac like I suggested in the previous season prediction video. For the Deweys kit, I decided to bring back the M-Berry Splat Deweys, bringing an entirely different kit from its Splatoon 2 variant, as we give it a sub of Fizzy Bomb and Kraken Royale for its special. Now onto the Blaster, we're going to bring back the custom Vanilla Blaster, and with its sub from 2 and special from 1 taken up, I came up with a new kit of point sensor missiles for this one, as it would be better than giving missiles to a shooter, and we need to give at least 1 weapon per new weapon drop missiles to make up for lost time, unfortunately. That leaves us with the 2 kits for Reflux and Stamper. Starting with the Reflux, it gets a kit of Burst Bomb Big Bubbler, which may not fit the best, but hey, it's not like the devs care about that too much, so this might actually bode well when it comes to predicting what they might actually do. And last but maybe not least, Splatana Stamper. I decided to make this the second weapon I give SP Chimney, because if they're gonna launch that special next season, then they're gonna give it to at least 2 weapons, so I thought it'd be smart to put it here. And yeah, Stamper just kinda gets the short end of the stick here and is given Toxic Mist. And that's it for the kits. Feel free to talk to me about how bad they are. Anyways, it's time to get into the final part of the video. Balance changes and quality of life features. To start with the balance changes, here are just some quick points for special changes that I would like to see implemented. V-Shaw is long overdue for a nerf. T-Tech should not be a cheaper Tri-Strike than V-Slosher. 85 may be fine, but that's mostly due to the competition it has in terms of being a core weapon for your team with Tri-Nouveau and Snipe Rider. I do not want to see 52 Gal be a top tier at 190p because Wheel suddenly becomes a good special after getting overbuffed. So let's get ahead of the 8-ball on that front and give it a nerf now. Lastly, I'd like to see a buff to Paintbrush's points for special. And also, Machine has been hit a bit too hard by nerfs, methinks. So let's revert one of its points for special nerfs as slight compensation. When it comes to main weapon changes, I have a few buffs that come to mind, starting with a couple of the Umbrellas. I'd like to see their max damage reverted to pre-MPU nerf numbers, with Vanilla Umbrella going from a max 81 damage to 90, and Undercover Umbrella going from 40 damage to 45 damage. Without MPU in the game, a lot of the weapons that benefited from it in late game Splatoon 2 have really struggled in this game, and Umbrellas have been hit the hardest by it, so something needs to be done to help make it feel like a viable weapon at higher levels again. Moving back to the Paintbrush, I'm giving a small buff to its ink efficiency on horizontal flicks, by about 6%, which should give it 2 more flicks on a full ink tank. Next up, this also kind of serves as a buff to an ability, as the curve of jump RNG from Intensify Action from all blasters will now match that of what was given to the Luna Blaster in the previous season's balance patch. Next up, Machine's compensation buffs continue, as we'll give it a single frame of the 5 frames it lost from continuous sloshes in a previous balance patch back. Lastly, S-Blast will see a small buff to the radius of its long-range no-jump RNG shot by only about 5%, to make sure the long-range mode is not too overtuned, and even then this might be pushing it. Now onto the few sub-weapon changes. First up will be Sprinkler, which I still think could use an increase in its durability, by increasing its HP to 200 and making it so that Object Shredder only has a ×3 damage multiplier on it, instead of ×10. For Toxic Mist, the slowdown should be more effective in my opinion, and to serve as a bit more of a deterrent, I think the sub should deal 10 damage for every second an opponent is stuck in it. Next up, Line Marker. This thing desperately needs another damage buff, so now it'll do 45 damage, and a player will be trapped for 10 seconds if they are hit directly. And if you pass through a line itself after it's thrown, you'll take 5 damage and be located for 3 seconds. Lastly, Curling Bomb will just see another small reduction in its cost, from 65% down to 60%. Lastly, for balance changes, the special changes, of which I have several to talk about here. For starters, Racefighter will now run over bombs and also has reduced end lag. Next up, Ultra Stamp will have improved protection from the front. Kraken Royale, meanwhile, will see a nerf to its ability to cheese objectives. For example, in Clan Blitz, players who have a power clan will not be able to jump to a Kraken to mitigate the problem of players just getting free scores off of the tactic. Now for the big 3 specials I want to nerf specific aspects of. For starters, Video Bomb will have its base duration go from 9 seconds to 8 seconds as a means of reducing cheese of holding it, such as in tower control to seal a game. Next up, Inkjet will see a small base duration decrease from 7.5 seconds to just 7 seconds. And lastly, the one you've been waiting for. Trizuka will see an increase in its startup lag, as in the actual problem with this special Nintendo. I also was thinking about a slight increase in cooldown between shots, though it'd only be by a couple frames. Lastly, the radius of the 53 damage hitbox will be shrunk to somewhere between pre-buff and post-nerf levels. For any hopes, as always, removing Respawn Punisher would be nice. Now let's finish this video by discussing some quality of life changes. There are some quality of life changes I've been clamoring for a while, and so I'll just briefly list them off here. The ability to trade in gold for shelling licenses, being able to trade in salmon run skills for other types of skills, and being able to trade in our already earned gear for cash instead of just chunks, better netcode, etc. Now I just have a couple of new ones to present. First, I think that the game should allow us to have both the effects of a food ticket and a drink ticket active at the same time. It's not like there's a chance that these effects can contradict each other, so why can't we at least do this? Lastly, as I brought up earlier, I want to see the addition of ranked modes for Splatfest, but I won't go any further on this one, because it's a smaller discussion for a larger video I have planned to go up sometime later this month. And that's it. If you enjoyed this video, that's great. Like and subscribe if you want to, though you obviously don't have to. Maybe leave a comment as well telling me how bad my opinions are and how I've just wasted your time. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great day.